Nothing has happened so far, so I think we are actually live. The opening to this is day 5. We're still awake. we're still watching League of Legends. It continues onwards because unlike every other region which took a break due to IEM, LPL's like, nah, we're gonna have the biggest upset in history of League of Legends, as well as continue to bring you your regularly broadcasted games. How many games? 24 of them. So we have a lot to cover, and we've got to break down our topics. But first and foremost, I'm your host, I'm Frostgren, with the panelists. See how smooth that was? I never have intros that are that smooth and flowing.
Ooh,
not even
it's
a
like
clap.
Jazz.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Soft jazz.
Soft. There we go, the hand. We've got Kelsey Moser, the big world lead icon right there. We've got Razzleplasm underneath me, and then we have Drexen. Drexen, just sit up a little bit.
Man, I'm so comfortable. Wait, I actually think it might be a cam issue.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Perfect. Okay, so normally I don't really take notes for the show. It's all just kind of like free form. We just kind of wing it. But today, because so much has happened, we've got specific topics that we're going to cover. And so first and foremost, I'm going to list the topics that we're covering. We're going to cover IEM, because of course, NaMei, OMG, Snake, EDG, and at the very end of the show, Razzleplasm has a very special announcement and topic that he would like to cover. That is very important.
Oh God, please no.
So, to kick it off, because this is the only thing that if we ever get, those 2 extra viewers that tack on to us will care about, we're going to talk about IEM. If you've been under a rock, you may have not heard that World Elite, and people are like, you're underselling them, they're not really the worst team. No, literally the worst team in LPL, the last place team in LPL, the punching bag of LPL.
Wow. Oh God, just smashing them in the ground, just elbow dropping them, just like the worst.
People keep asking, do you think things will change? What do you think about the new roster? Do you think... Okay, it's not here, I'm the host. Went to IEM, and they upset not only the GE Tigers, but both Korean teams. Both the Korean teams that went to IEM, World Elite took out. Let that sink in.
All right. I've absorbed it fully.
I haven't slept yet, so it's still just processing for me.
Yeah, I still wake up and I'm just like, did GE Tigers still lose?
You come out of your
It's gonna be like my thought process for the next 5 days.
Your Red Bull shock and just kind of, okay. How did this happen? That's first and foremost, how did this happen? That's a great answer.
Oh my God.
Can I say that right off the bat, World Elite finally has like reliable mid lane champion pools, like something. I don't know. Like,
I don't even know if that's the case though.
You're just gonna shove Ninja under the bus right there.
He was actually okay.
I can't ignore the entirety of Ninja's career just because like the last bit just before IEM he was like excelling and he was like carrying the team.
So we're going to ignore all of Xiye's career. Where
Okay,
he just played Annie.
Okay, so no, we bring up a valid talking point, champion pool.
Yeah.
So obviously the previous mid laner of World Elite WE, before they went to IEM was a Korean named Ninja from Prime Optimus. And he had an issue where he could only play, for the last year's split, it was effectively Lulu. Lulu and Jace is what he played. This year, it's been Xerath, Ezreal,
Anivia, and Kassadin.
Okay, there we go. And he
actually had a couple good Ahri games, but they didn't win them.
Well, they haven't won a lot of their games.
Yeah, but he had some pretty decent Ahri games. I feel like Ahri is just like, Thorin always talks about the Orianna box. I feel like for China, it's Ahri. It's just something they can always play.
You know that really high skill-based champion? Where every single matchup is a skill matchup. Yeah, that's our cautious. Yeah, I think I need to sit this one out and just really take it easy. I'm gonna pick Ahri.
It's just something that they pick and can really excel at for some reason.
Okay,
I feel like Zed fits that same hole where like he's out of the meta, but you'll find like Layla's or Mickey God just kind of like bring it. And you're like,
do not bring up Mickey God.
Okay.
Lee Sen mid. No.
We already have enough mediocre mid laners to talk about now.
Xiye, is he the real deal? He impressed a lot of people at IEM, which, to be fair, he made a lot of impressive 1v1 plays.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he was really good, but I also feel like he was a little more exposed in the set against TSM. But against GE Tigers, like, first and foremost, obviously the entire team overperformed to a level that I didn't expect. I mean, and when I say overperformed, I don't want people to think that they just turned into this miraculous team that was without flaws. They still had their flaws, but I feel like they were hidden by enhancing the strengths of what they're good at, which is not very much, but it's enough to push them to victory. And I don't know, I really feel like the Xiye solo kill on Kuro in the LeBlanc versus Ezreal match kind of started the whole hype train with just because it was like, oh, Xiye solo killed a Korean mid laner, and that's pretty much what people focus on, right? I do think it's misplaced for people to say like this is like the second coming of Faker, because again, every time a new
said that?
yes. Every time a new
people have compared Xiye to Faker
every time a new mid laner
What?
comes up and they can 1v1 kill people, they're always fake. They're always like, they always claim Faker, but people don't understand that that's like not Faker's mantra. Like, Faker is not good just because he can 1v1 kill people. He's really intelligent. He's really smart. He's pays attention to the map. He has a huge champion pool, which is absolutely ridiculous.
When have I ever heard the phrase, it's like, Faker's so good, he 1v1 killed that guy? Like,
Yeah, exactly. And,
Right.
and the key difference here is that GA is nowhere near Faker on the level of team fighting. Like, if you watch the team fighting in both sets, really, it's, I don't know, it's
Awful.
a mess.
Atrocious.
Yeah, it's not great. But
Disgusting.
that's the thing is like
Wrong.
GE Tigers. I think GE Tigers, like, a lot of it was lack of preparation, and so when World Elite came out and like crushed really hard early on, it didn't really matter how poorly they performed team fights, because it's not like GE Tigers was out team fought or anything like that. Like, there was points in the game where GE Tigers lost team fights, but they were like 12k gold behind, and it was still close. So when it got to that phase, they were narrowly pulling out victories in those team fights by having such early leads, and obviously TSM found a way to stop that. So they, like, team fights went a lot better than for them because they were pretty much even in lane, so they didn't have that huge advantage to cover up and patch up their team fight issues. So yeah, it is really weird. Like, I mean, we can try to reason it out, and there is a lot of logical reasons why this happened, but it still is the greatest upset in League of Legends history, and it was definitely, I don't even want to say it's an underperformance of GE Tigers more so than a underpreparation of GE Tigers, but it was most definitely an overperformance in Elite in their early game prowess.
I think, like, it comes back to, like, this is why I love world tournaments, by the way. This is why I love international tournaments. They're so good in that it shows the differences in styles. And styles make fights. That's the mantra you hear in boxing. Styles make fights, because you see, like, no matter how linear it feels like the meta has gone, in which it's like, oh, these are the clear champions you have to play, because if you play any other champion, it's like subpar. But you saw that, like, teams couldn't handle team fighting, it felt like, and how raw these team fights were starting. And so, like, World Elite, I felt like we're winning matches because, like, sure, they were getting out CS'd in lanes at times, and sure, they were, like, objective control was iffy, and warding was bad, but then they would just force fights, constantly. Raw fights. They were not good fights. Like, half the time, Aluka would just, like, he would just ult onto people and be like, oh, God, is this fight really happening? Is it? I think it is. Alright. No,
The eternal
disengaging.
mindset of Aluka.
They're disengaging, they're re-engaging. But
Where
they're
am
always...
I?
There was this one fight with Aluka where he was on Heckram. I want to make a gif of this, but he literally like engaged into the fight, missed all of his targets, and then was like running around in the middle of the team fight. And meanwhile, the cast is like, and Aluka zoning at the front line. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not hitting anyone right now.
But that's the thing. They would always force these fights so amazingly hard to a level that's just absolutely, there's no reason to do that. You just have, at that point, you have to look at them and be like, you can't fight this, but you just blew everything and missed. Like, we could kill you. But teams wouldn't react. GE Tigers wouldn't, like, at least try to out team fight them. That was the problem. And this is one of the things that like people will be like, wait, so is like after seeing this tournament, like, so is TSM better than GE Tigers? No, that's not the case. GE Tigers is a much more crisp team, but one thing TSM is better at is adapting to the other team's playstyle. Like TSM was like, wow, these guys are fighting it. Like they're
Aren't GE
constantly pushing
Tigers
us.
the team though that is really isn't there a narrative and their big hype about how they tailor their strategy and their composition for every single individual team and they always come with something creative and new. Isn't that their deal though?
But that's the thing though. I feel like they didn't prepare.
Well, that
and
was
so that's
fairly
kind of,
obvious, but that's
but that's
what
that's
I'm
the
making.
strength. But that's the strength of the GE Tigers, right? Monte Cristo on the desk was talking about how they were prepared for the 2v1 with the double Doran's rings early on, giving the Maokai the blue buff so he could hold the tower, right? In the against SK Gaming when they played the Caitlyn Fash Push composition, like they knew that they were going to do that SK was likely to fall back on Caitlyn if they banned the Lucian and Graves. And so they took the double Doran's Maokai so he could just sustain and hold with the early blue buff just so he could sustain and hold the turret. Like, GE Tigers does these creative things, they ultra prepare for it, the teams they're against, and then they just, against WE, they very obviously didn't. They tried to come out with like a new champion pick after winning the game. It's almost as if they were slowly identifying what WE was doing, and then they kind of just didn't react because it was almost, is this really happening? I feel almost like GE was in as much shock as we were. Like, this is actually something that's occurring.
Yeah.
In terms of Xiye, I think what we know, all of us know, is Xiye has never, like, laning phase has never been Xie's problem. Like, at bottom, Xiye has always been good in lane. Like, he's been able to do the 1v1 kind of outplay sort of thing.
But every
usually
Chinese laner is good in lane.
Well,
This
I
is
mean,
what
even in the
kills me.
context of China, and even when he was on WE Academy within LPL. So, a little background on Xiye. He was really hyped up because he's always been like near the top of the solo queue ladder, and right now he's absolutely number one. And people would hype him up because his farm scores would always be higher than all of his oppositions in solo queue. He would be able to do the 1v1 outplay. He had really good ability to use certain champions, even like Twisted Fate and laning phase, to make plays like in the early game. And then so they signed him to WE Academy, this LSPL team. He could just kind of style on people. He could pick Annie mid, right? And he could build Majais on Annie and just like have 20 kills by the end of the game, right? In TGA, in Tencent Games Arena, at the time that I'm talking about, it was still qualifying for LPL. They didn't manage to make it into LPL. That was the year that LGD made it from the TGA finals. But then, LGD and Vici Gaming qualified for the promotion tournament. That's right. Anyway, not important. The thing is that eventually they ended up in LSPL. During LSPL, they had the same kind of style, WE Academy, that relied on winning early game. Like, almost every single lane was really strong. Xiye could make these plays around the map and get kills in the early laning phase and just snowball ahead. And then LSPL, you got to this point where you were just ridiculously ahead. You won laning phase so hard, and the games would just end. WE Academy loses their shot caller, which obviously had an effect, and their support, Ari, and then they made it into LPL. And suddenly, when they won laning phase really hard, and they couldn't win laning phase obviously as hard because they were against LPL teams, the game didn't end suddenly. And they made all these team fighting misplays. Xiye kind of faltered, lost some of his confidence, stopped winning lane as hard. And he eventually, like, after 6 best of 2s, got replaced by a Korean solo queue player named Mickey. And he only, out of 12 games, they only won 1 game against the 7th place team. So Xiye just, I don't think he knows what to do after laning phase, like, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows how to team fight very well.
That's fair. And he did continue to make errors in IEM, like
So who's better,
quite often.
Ninja or Xiye?
Xiye. Well,
That's really hard to say. Honestly, like because it depends what you compare it on. Like over a career long amount of time, I would say that Xiye. Well, I don't know. I don't even know if you can say that because Xiye certainly was good in lane, as we mentioned earlier, but it's not like he was absolutely heads and shoulders above other Chinese mid laners, and then on top of that, he had a poor team fight. So, I mean, if you compare them relatively, the thing that's interesting right now is that Xiye and Ninja are both at like the high peaks that they've been at. The difference being, I think that this meta currently favors Xiye's champion pool a little bit better. So, Ninja's like pretty much their Ninja's like best moment was last patch, right? Because that was the last one at LPL was when Cassidy was strong, and he was really good on Cassidy and those kind of champions. Now, but yeah, I mean he still showed the same problems in team fights. It wasn't like amazing, but he I do think he significantly improved from before. But I mean I guess that happens when you just sit there and spam solo queue. Now. Is this going to work domestically? I'm not really sure because I think that LPL teams are probably going to prepare in a similar sense like TSM. Like they're a lot more used to combating the way that that World Elite set up their conditions to win at IEM, and there's not going to be the element of surprise that was there. Not to mention, even though GE Tigers is supposedly the strongest team in the world, it's not like they're not without flaws. One of the major ones being actually something that Rez brought up yesterday is that they do tend to play to the level of their opponents, even if they do have the highest capacity of play, because, I mean, they had trouble against Samsung too, right? So they are a team that are, even though it's ridiculous, it's still ridiculous, like statistically, that World Elite was able to come out on top of that. It's more likely for GE Tigers to be upset than a lot of other teams that would be at the top right now, like including Chinese talent. Like I can't see WE 2-0ing EDG or OMG or anything like that, especially since what World Elite brought to the table to IM was essentially OMG's playstyle but watered down. So,
Do you think domestically, and when they return, they will face OMG? Do you think that they're just gonna go back to being the punching bag, or will we see a slow and steady climb? Is this just a roster that just needs a little bit more time before it can shine again and continue to make these upsets, or is this just a lucky chance?
They can't afford time. That's the problem. I mean, and they have tough matches ahead of them. What is it? LGD, OMG, and then Snake, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
I think Starhorn is the last team they face, so that might be. Yeah.
Okay, I'd have to double check. Yeah.
The thing is though that right now, like this week, there were so many 1-1s. Like the only teams that really 2-0'd were like OMG had a 2-0, EDG 2-0'd all their games because they're EDG. But pretty much, and then I guess Starhorn and King both had a couple 2-0s, but like pretty much all the other sets both had a 2-0 each, but pretty much every other set was a 1-1. And this includes like IG versus GAMT, right? Mm-hmm. So you're at this point where getting that 2-0, getting that 3 points, which you need to move up, is really hard. Like trying to get that is just so hard. And this is even between like bottom 4 teams and top 6 teams. So if you put those two together, like the highest probability is that they're going to 1-1 in any given matchup. Mm-hmm. And in that climate, even if WE improved, like unless they suddenly became god tier EDG status, which I think it's pretty easy to say that they haven't.
You just have to watch the VODs, and that's just not the case.
And they're not going to be able to get those 2-0s and climb. Like I think they can get some 1-1s. Like I think but I think every other team is just going to split 1-1 most of the time throughout the rest of the tournament, and it's just going to be so hard to crack that top 8.
Mm-hmm. And again, World Elite, obviously, the entire season has been trash, but it's not as if they weren't improving near the end. Like, they did have a few splits, and they actually got a few wins out right before, like the week before they entered IEM. So they were already improving, plus the roster swap, which I think is beneficial to them. So, yeah, that actually more solidifies the fact that it'll go like 1-1 at the very least with a few of their matchups. So, yeah, they've been improving a little bit. It's just that the problems that they have is that, okay, they can't get away with this early lead because China's used to that, and they can't get away with. They sure as hell can't get away with shitty team fighting in China. So they have to excel one or the other, right? And I don't see them doing that two games in a row, which is why this is still a really difficult task for World Elite.
Are World Elite still, or have they ever been the worst team in China? Like, actually the worst team? Because obviously, the standings don't necessarily always reflect a team's actual strength. So do you think that this World Elite going in, that the standings were not indicative of their actual power? And do you think that coming back, that maybe they deserve a higher place?
I think
Well,
WE.
oh yeah, go on. I wanna.
I think
Okay. Yeah.
WE is really hard to assess because from the start we saw they had the ability to overperform, right? And I think it's restricted on like Spirit and maybe one of the carries just stepping up and having those really good games that allows them to overperform, because obviously Spirit has a really high ceiling. He's able to exert a lot of pressure. Jungle is one of the most influential roles in the game.
Yep.
The other one being mid lane. So we saw right out the bat, as soon as they were formed, they 2-1'd an OMG team that wasn't the same OMG roster. They had Xiye mid lane, right? And then they managed to take Edward Gaming in the finals of Demacia Cup, like the Chinese Edward Gaming that went to Worlds. They managed to take them to 5 games. So they've had these overperformances that have occurred, and they've been able to take games off this IG team. They've been able to take games off Snake, a game off Snake, excuse me. So they have this ability to do that, but I think as a team overall, they're either 11th or 12th in general. Just
so you
based
still
on
think that they're a bottom tier team?
Yeah, based on their team chemistry, based on the general skill of like their top laner. They're the worst team fighting team in a region that's known for team fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the problem.
It's really weird. Like, World Elite is a paradox in that sense. Like, yes, they are a 11th to 12th place LPL team, but I don't know what that means if they are a like low rated team in any other region. Like, I mean, obviously LPL is the stronger region, so it doesn't really translate directly that way. But I think you kind of understand what I'm getting at, in the sense that just specifically within the context of LPL, their skill set is not appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's important to realize that this clash of styles it's been seen before. Like, LMQ came from China, went to NA, like basically from the first couple of weeks, just surprised every team. Every team was like, "Oh God!" They just out team fight us every time. Like they we'll be fine in every lane.
Let's
like everything
not
will
go
be fine.
comparing across regions. We don't have enough statistical data to make any sort of assessment here.
I don't know if that's. It's just. Okay, for World Elite specifically, like I don't even know how to realize.
Back it up, Braz.
I was figuring out. I was like, is that sarcasm? I'm not sure anymore. But like for World Elite specifically, you have to look at the teams that are they're compete against, obviously, and look at those quality in teams, and it's difficult to figure out where to put them. Like, you can't put them above Starhorn World Club anymore.
It's really funny. I'm having this surreal moment because pretty much we all watch the games together. Like, obviously we don't sit the Skype calls together all the time, but you know, on Twitter, through Skype messages, whatever, we talk during the games. And 99% of the messages that we pass back and forth, like if you just read our tweets as the game goes on, it's, "Oh my God, this car accident. This is awful. What are they doing? This is the worst I've ever seen." And so if people if they don't actually watch the games and they're just looking at what we're saying, I mean, obviously they're gonna look at, this is the 11th or the 12th place LPL team. This is gonna be atrocious. This is gonna be awful.
Yeah.
And to me, World Elite's performance was awful. Like, yeah, they overperformed, but I'm still looking at that team fighting, being like, Aluka, what are you doing in the middle there? What's going on? You gonna hit someone anytime soon? Okay, we got 2 autos. This is good. We're solid.
it was a major outlier, and the same vulnerabilities they had were still there, and the parts that they were strong at were not prepared for by any team outside of TSM. That's pretty much what it comes down to, and it's still amazing, like that World Elite made it that far. Trust me, I was so happy that they did, but I mean, it is essentially a fluke by definition. So,
And on an individual level, like in 1v1 scenarios, we saw really good performances by Xiye, even by Mystic, definitely by Spirit.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Spirit.
So,
oh yeah,
it's not that they played poorly on an individual level, but they're not a team. They didn't play well as a team. And we can say, oh, well, they have a new roster. That's an obvious comment, but they had the same problem in LPL after 30 games with the same roster. So I'm not sure if suddenly they'll be able to click and synergize better with these two guys, because we didn't really see a whole lot of synergy. Or if this is just something that's inherent in like the shot calling or the way they're trying to play together, or Luca not being able to hit game-starting skill shots on a consistent basis. I have no idea.
Okay, we're gonna kill the IM, and we're gonna move on to our next topic. Last closing note: the team that takes out the 2 Korean teams at IM, we call awful. Like, even I gave you guys another chance. You're like, no, this is still an awful team. They still did awful. I just find it.
I think they'll take games and be competitive, but I feel like the bottom 6 teams are like in this place where they're all fairly even in terms of they can hit this like overperforming ceiling, and they can take this game here, or they can have this really standout performance by this one player.
The reason why, and I've told you this many times before, it's when a team's strategy is simply to mechanically outplay the other team, you flip a coin on who's going to win that. Because China has such a high bar of just base mechanics. And I don't think anyone can dispute that. Even a Luca. Like, a Luca is probably, he's the bottom of the barrel for LPL, and he still was able to hit.
And there's LSPL top laners better than him, too.
Exactly.
So.
And it's important to... Oh, go on, Kelsey, go on.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to say, but I think you can draw... For me, I draw skill lines like bottom 6 is kind of a crapshoot. And then you have Vici Gaming and Invictus Gaming on a tier that's kind of together. And then you have OMG, LGD, Snake, and they're all very similar levels, and then EDG at the top. And so I look at it that way, and when you say WE is like a bottom 2 team still, I feel like it's more like a bottom 6 where the level you can't really identify it very clearly.
Because there's no strategy, it's just about mechanics. When you get into that OMG LGD, the
I'm not
mechanics
even
increase again, and you throw in some strategy, and then EDG is so much farther ahead because they have so much strategy and the mechanics.
But here's the thing. Here's what it comes down to. There's strategy, and then there's this pure level of consistency and understanding what you are as a team. EDG understands what they want to do every game that they play, and so they will 2-0 because they understand. Well, we go into this game, we want to they'll have XYZ. This is what we want to achieve. We've already practiced this. Snake, everybody criticizes Snake, but they go into a game, and though they may not be mechanically skilled in one lane or another, they still have a plan going in. And if they fail, they default back to their Kog'Maw plan that they've always had. This is a base.
Pull out
plan.
the Kog'Maw, boys. Line them up.
Their Oriana box has Kog'Maw in it.
Yeah, and then you'll just see Vici Gaming that's like, let's try Twitch this game. Let's they'll go back and forth, and it's like,
put him on Corky. Try, oh my God, just give him Twitch.
And so you legitimately just question how much have they practiced this composition? How much have they practiced this playstyle? Are they just really just dicking around? Are they I don't understand at this point. And it comes down to, you can say how seriously they're taking it, or even it just comes down to how well planned they are as a team and what they even want to identify themselves as. It's and I don't know how to identify Invictus Gaming. I felt like somewhere near the middle of the LPL season, they're turning out to be that long tier game, that EDG copycat kind of
double tier late game team fightings, and suddenly they're just nope, dive 3 towers.
Yeah.
And then Kakao saw the damage done to champions graph in that first game against EDG, and saw that Kitties only did 600 damage in total that game, and he just freaked out and picked up Lucian and started diving between first and second tier towers.
Oh my God.
Okay, we're gonna talk about NaMei.
Uh.
We're on second topic. It's gonna be NaMei. Now,
Okay.
NaMei had his re-entrance into competitive play. He is now playing for Starhorn Royal Club. Who is their opening game? GT? Was it
Yeah.
Gamty?
Gamty, yeah.
Okay. Opening game was against Gamty. Thoughts on NaMei? Is this the same? Is this the same NaMei? Has he gotten better? Has he gotten worse? Does his name, is he allowed to be breathed in the best 80 carries of the world? How is Starhorn looking with him?
I will say better, but I think that NaMei, like the star power of NaMei was a little bit less this week than it was last week. But honestly, that's not really saying much when you
You mean
when
in
you
the
watch.
second best of two than the first? Because
Yeah, because
I am driven him crazy. He's like
wait,
last
holy
week.
shit! Was that this? Oh my
Yeah, that was
god,
this
that's
week.
the
Yeah.
same week.
This
Day
week,
6.
Oh my god,
We're
dude,
still
too
awake.
Too many league games. Okay.
there's really too many
Oh
games.
my god, I can't believe he's only been there for the weekend. Okay.
yeah, he's only played 2 best of twos in the same.
Yeah.
He
So
just
far-
got back on the field, Mike.
Dude, I know. For some reason the starting games it felt like last week. Okay, but anyway,
Yeah, I had the
Yeah.
same problem.
Take
yeah.
another
So
sip of Red Bull.
anyway, yeah. So his latest sets obviously didn't look like superstar studded, but I don't think the team like really needed him to be as much. Whereas in the beginning of the week, oh my god, this guy like okay, we were all really scared that he would be like just kind of rusty or like food
Lackluster.
poisoned or something, and. Dude,
Still
he,
food
like,
poisoned.
and the best thing is, I feel like this was intentional. Is Starhorn Rail Club basically set NaMei up for failure this week, like in the early games. Like they would put him on Jinx without having really any kind of form of peel or protection against like horrible lockdown champions, right? And he would still like, yeah, okay, he had some lane troubles due to the like ridiculous focus against him in the bottom lane, but
In game 2.
in
In game
yeah,
1, he just kind of died.
Yes, in terms of team fighting, like his calculated play and all that stuff looks like really like it looks back. It's really really good. Like he straight up hard carried, and he wasn't like fed tons of buffs or anything like that. Like Crystal, he wasn't like
Like
it wasn't
What?
Huh?
What did you
Oh.
say?
he like and I really want to see those two face
Wait.
off like 10 times.
You said
Because just like to watch, just like so people like understand the differences between these two players.
Oh, the differences. You mean how Crystal's team pretty much gives him every single opportunity
Yes.
to be a decent 80 carry, whereas
Yes.
NaMei's team runs in 1v5 repeatedly, and then he manages to hard carry a game on Jinx with no boots
Yes,
against a Lissandra.
exactly. Okay, like on a side note,
I'm
on a si-
clarifying.
on a side note, Crystal's self-sufficiency was a little better this week when they ran Poke and they ran Kog'Maw without like Lulu and all that stuff because Lulu and Nunu were banned out. But in terms
I
of
didn't
yeah,
wanna talk
in
about
terms of
that.
NaMei, yeah,
Yeah.
he stayed alive, he hard carried, and he literally didn't have boots for like the entire game, and he had like no peel, and he was against an insane comp. Like this was seriously like literally everything was everything was against NaMei in this set, and he just floored it. Now in the last few games, it's kind of like he just kind of had these like okay performances and just kind of did his job. So it's like either he's inconsistent, which I don't really want to believe until I have more data, or they're trying to like test out Devil and test out NaMei, if you know what I mean.
I think we're starting to see more Devil, and it just because it
Right.
comes down to what he said in an interview that was translated.
Are we all talking
He-
about the same interview, the one after the Starhorn game?
The star, what? He
Excuse me.
was
Like,
I was like, wait a
Game
minute.
The
orders.
Gamty game. I'm thinking
yeah,
like
I
it's
think
him
so.
versus Uzi.
Yeah, where he says that like having an escape on an 80 carry isn't needed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he said that they said, how do you use like champions without escapes? And he's just like, I guess
doesn't
you just
really
dodge
matter.
everything. Yeah.
Just stop picking soon.
I actually think he's better on champions without escapes because like when he does have escapes, he's just like, how do I use this? This is
I
so
actu-
foreign and strange. And then he
actually
just
agree.
like Ezreal ease into 5 people.
No, I agree with you because I feel like he's just so conditioned to deal with those kind of situations that's just what he performs on, and he tries harder, and he's like more into like focusing really hard on how to position on those champions that have a distinct disadvantage at it, and he's really good at it because a lot of the time those champions that don't have positioning tools put out a lot more DPS into the fights, so it's perfect for him. So it's actually fun to watch when there's like a huge mobility spike in most of the other AD carries that are available.
Here comes the question, and I'm glad that we're talking about meta champions and kind of lack of mobility, because obviously Kog'Maw is coming back. We have different Kog'Maw compositions. The really popular one is the Juggermaw, but also in just basic protect the AD carry composition, Kog'Maw is back. You know who else is a really good Kog'Maw player in this region? Come on, guys, I'll give you 5 seconds.
Go ahead, because
Deft is a really good Kog'Maw player.
Yeah,
for some reason I thought you were mentioning domestically, and I was like, oh yeah, Deft. Ugh. We need sleep.
Versus NaMei. I know this is getting bad. Deft versus NaMei.
I don't think we can go there yet.
Really?
Don't go there.
At this point, I think
It's
Deft.
untouchable. We're not allowed to analyze.
No, but I do think Deft is better right now.
Why?
But I don't think we have enough data to compare them. Just because Deft's like turned into this laning phase god for some reason.
At the same time, I really think NaMei needs more work with his team because the team play aspect is very interesting at this point. Because obviously he's not going to be.
I'm just talking about the AD carries. Because obviously you can make the argument that EDG's whole strategy, especially when they're super successful, like when they had their 20-minute victory against LGD, it was because they fed Deft. And the competition was all about him, and EDG gave him, again, all of the resources and the time and the energy. But just strip away both teams, NaMei versus Deft.
Including the
I feel like they've switched places, kind of. Because I think that last year, you could look at it and you could say that NaMei had, like, this point in spring, in the middle of the year, he had like these really strong laning, like towards the end of spring, he had these really strong laning phases, really amazing and immaculate team fighting. Like, he looked literally flawless at this time. And then Deft at the same time would just like give up kills in lane and have a weak lane phase, but then he would come out and team fight and you'd be like, who is this player? Like, where did he come from? So I feel like it's almost like NaMei is now, based on the 4 games where we've seen him, is now in that kind of Deft position.
Yeah.
You guys are boring.
But it's true. You like need a support. It's what it all comes down to, and I don't think he's had enough time with Zero to really form some consistency in the lane.
But at the same time, you could kind of like. I actually preferred watching the Starhorn versus Kingset. That was really interesting. If we're talking, because the first game he played like the Corki and was trying to play self-sufficiently because the composition was much more about insec. Which, can we never do that again? We talk about like the Hecarim play from Maluka where he just kind of went in and waved around. I felt like that was what was happening with insec, not because he was like bad at aiming his Onslaught of Shadows or anything, just because like he would just randomly be somewhere where he's not supposed to be.
I got a skin idea. If we we make an Aluka Hecarim skin, and instead of like the little javelin, he's got a flag, and it's the World Elite flag. And so when he runs into the middle of team fights, he's just like spinning the flag around.
Oh my god.
We can call it Mascot Hecarim.
But so
But he is at that point.
they go. But I think the composition was like pretty smart. It used like the Oriana Hecarim because they obviously wanted to go in. The Onslaught of use Insect to go in, and another method of like ball delivery and pull everyone. Because Korn's champion has traditionally been Oriana. And he had some good ults, some not so good ults this game. But it just ultimately, again, we didn't see the performance from NaMei that we saw in the previous set or in the second game when he played Kog'Maw. And I think the team in general just looked so much more comfortable in Game 2 playing that style. Like, oh, we have an AD carry that we can protect. We'll bring more peel. We'll bring like the Janna. We'll bring the Nunu.
Right, King,
we'll pull that
King
out.
versus Starhorn?
Yeah.
Game 2? Okay.
the game too.
Imagine that. The team that had Uzi Eyes carry performs
like,
really well on Peel comps.
We'll bring like the
Well-
Janna, we'll bring the Nunu, but it had this twist aspect of it, right? Because they didn't put Corrin back on Orianna, they put him on Ahri. And he was I felt like he was a very good bridge. So they varied it up a little bit. They took aspects of stuff that they'd learned from not playing with an AD carry, and they looked much more comfortable game 2.
Get on my vocabulary. She uses the word bridge like I use the word bridge, and every single time I hear it, I just want to. Sorry.
Got
Moment there.
All right.
Let's move on to OMG then. Unless you guys have anything more to. I gave you like the controversial, the Deft versus NaMei to hype it up.
I mean,
I feel like I keep giving them like these big moments, like World Elite, I am champions. They're like, well, you know what happened is, and I think there's nothing that's really changed. And I really love TSM, and I think they're the greatest team in the world.
Oh god.
And then
great.
like Deft versus NaMei, like, well, I think there's not enough data.
Deft is
and-
performing really well. Deft is like a fucking god right now. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but and also this is the other thing is that NaMei they played against Gamti and King this week, right?
They
So
fed.
that's-
Not only did
that's-
NaMei play against Gamti, he played against Insec, he played against Godlike, he played against Korn.
Okay, but
yeah, I
what
feel
I'm
like in
saying is,
any
like-
given game he had Zero. Like Zero was pretty reliable, but then either Insec would have a really good game and he'd have an ally in Insec, or Korn would have a really good game and he'd have an ally in Korn. So in any given game he has two teammates kind of.
Okay, this is what we need to do.
But-
We need to get Spirit and NaMei on the same team.
Can we get Cola back? Like I heard that.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't really bench him. I heard that he didn't want to play. So
Impressive.
What is with all these
That's
players
disappointing.
ejecting themselves from the scene?
Dude, Chinese
I
don't
players
know.
have this habit of doing it when they're at top too. Like rest in peace, Wei Zhao. But like Cola's like that too. He was really, really good. I think he's the best he's ever been, and now he just doesn't want to play, and it's really upsetting.
probably
Would
because
you
he
want to
just-
play with Hecarim in your jungle?
I mean, but yeah, that's the
I
thing.
don't know. Ask Mata.
Oh,
Ooh.
okay.
That's the thing with NaMei and Deft is like you have the 4 games against 2 relatively lower rated teams right now for NaMei to go against, and while they looked really good, you have an entire season of Deft games to look at. But with that said, historically, I will say that NaMei is still the second most self-sufficient AD carry to ever play the game. So
You know what history we're not looking at, though? I mean, you just brought up NaMei's history. We're not looking at Starhorn Royal Cup's history. This, guys, consistently happens every single year. Right after Worlds, Starhorn takes a nosedive because they lose half their roster. And then everything starts out slow. Even last year, Insec, he's feeding for no reason. He's just, like, running in and dying. And then suddenly, around the middle of the season or the late half of the season, they just start skyrocketing and climbing back up. So you know what
Yep.
this means. It means that NaMei is going to be the second place world champion.
Oh my god.
I'm so waiting for this.
You never know. Here's one
China,
thing.
China final.
This has been the weekend of like horrible pick ban and like not just like specifically surrounding Rengar, because we've seen it in IM World Championships, and then we saw it with Game 1 and Game 2 versus Starhorn Royal Club, where NaMei literally, okay, I can't use the word literally in that aspect, but he was carrying Insect's corpse like across the finishing line, because it was so bad, where he would just like, Insect would be like, he's ulting, Rengar ulting, and I didn't explain it properly, where he would just pick Rengar into Rek'Sai, and he can't engage at any point with Rek'Sai in a team fight in mid to late game.
He did it in a Lysandra comp too. And anytime there's Lysandra, I'll have to go back and rewatch the VODs of when Rengar comes out. But Rengar cannot gank that lane. Like, if he picked that into that there's zero gank opportunity there, because Lysandra's just gonna turn on Rengar and just blow him up. It's almost like trying to run into his Syndra lane.
Yeah, he picked it. No, he blind picked it. Like the moment Rek'Sai
He blind
was
picked
picked,
it? Oh,
Yeah.
that's even better.
like Rek'Sai was picked in Game 2, and then he immediately responded like, Rengar's a good pick in this setting, and he got it. So it was like, okay.
I think this is, and you see him come out with like the fizz and all this other stuff, and you realize that like Insec
He must be really bored.
is like the Zatai of the jungle. He just like
He's
I don't
like,
really know if I can play this like meta champion, so I'm just gonna come out with something that will really surprise people, and they will have no idea how to play against it, and then I'll win like a couple games off it, and then I have to come up with something else. So.
Speaking of Satai, let's move on and talk about EDG.
What?
Yeah, I
Well,
went
they
there.
played against
What?
IG this. They played against
Oh,
IG this
yeah.
week, so
Good
it's
save.
like kind of
Good
a
save.
segue.
Good save.
Uh,
Got that one out of the way.
Get it, save. Get it? Get it?
Ah.
Oh,
Not good enough to be in the lineup. Just kidding. It has nothing to do with skill, I'm sure.
No, I didn't want to talk about IG, but I wanted to get off of NaMei because we were going into Starhorn Royal Club, and I don't want to talk about them, just about NaMei. But let's talk about EDG, because everyone's been talking about World Elite, and the question that I get a lot is, how would World Elite do against someone like EDG? And the answer is...
Oh, God. Miserable.
I can't. Like, the only thing worse than them facing OMG and LGD next week is if, like, the first game they come back is EDG. It would just be so depressing for them.
Yeah. EDG is just too smart, honestly, to
And
let what happened to G against them. And they have experience playing against them, so, I mean, that's not a big deal.
So
Really, that's all you guys have to say about EDG?
What do we? Okay, so
Against World Elite, yeah. I mean, not in general.
How about in general? Let's just talk about EDG. Who are EDG? What are they doing right now? Are they really the best team in China? Where are they ranked in the world? Like, how would you put EDG internationally?
Let me say first, every time. People will, I don't know, it's just like, what do you say about them? Because they've just been dominating recently. Oh, not even recently, just for a long fucking time.
You mean they have like the most
Since their
2-0s
creation.
ever? Yeah, they have
Since
the most 2-0s ever, and they have the least 1-1s right now, I'm pretty sure.
And then people will always favor Korean teams. Like, what about other Korean teams? It's like Korea loses like majority of their talent, like gets destroyed of their infrastructure. It's like, well, they're still Korean, and you're like, okay, how about we get off their dicks already and like talk about the actual
excellent.
game?
Okay, we're gonna have a moment. We're gonna call it Froskeren's Controversial Corner.
All right.
And here we go.
please.
Here comes this up. As I was listening to the cast, because I of course was casting the wild and exciting NACC during the World Elite upset, so I had to go back and watch the VODs. And normally when I do VOD watching, I watch it on mute, and I just am watching the games, but I really wanted to hear the shift in casting between, like, as the GE series went on, just to see if I could, like, pick up on anything as the casters are realizing this is honestly happening, which the casters did a great job. But there was a comment about Prey and how his performance, and I understand it, I think it's a valid statement that people are making, that Prey did not perform very well this tournament. It happens, people can have a bad tournament. But there was a comment of that this Prey's performance wasn't of the recent Prey, but more like the Prey a year ago. And as I just stepped back as a bystander, I'm like, oh, you mean a year ago when people like Deft and Imp were in his region, and now suddenly he's performing really well, which he's probably stepped up his own performance, but he doesn't have that high of caliber of competition to deal with because they all left. I'm just making that statement. Lost a lot of talent. There's Froskeren's Controversial Corner, over and done with.
Yeah, I do think that the improvements of a lot of individual Korean players is overstated simply because the best players have left the region. I mean, it's been this way with, I mean, even with players like Space. Blatantly obvious improvement. He's clearly fixed problems from last split. But when the competition is so much lower and you don't have these star 80 carries in that region anymore, it's really hard to, like, let's say that they are one of the best in their position when they would realistically, had we had like a vacuum that just sucked everyone out of China back into Korea, still be, what, 5th, 6th, maybe, at best? So, I mean, it's just stuff like that happens, and people always overvalue things. I mean, it's just because we've been fed since pretty much OGN 2012 that this is the best region, and so when people just, when people hear that something is the best, they apply that best to like literally everything, and so the narrative is just like individually, team play, infrastructure, all this other stuff, and when that's really just not the case anymore. I mean, even GE Tigers, infrastructurally, they're pretty weak for their dominance. Like, they're just, I mean, they're not like super amazingly funded to my knowledge, and they have like, what, one coach, right? and that's very different from what we're used to in terms of infrastructure in Korea. So when you look at like the context of the situation, it becomes a lot more apparent that people are like missing out a lot of little details that used to make Korea the best region outside of just being that country.
And it's very important to like, because this world I love IEM now, because even though like I've had like a billion and one problems with IEM, it just like
You
it
love
shows.
best of ones?
He loves them.
Goddamn best of ones.
He works for Team 8, so of course.
Well,
he
Come
loves
on,
best of
come on.
ones.
Wow.
That final would
Yeah.
not have happened without best of ones. Just saying.
Wow,
like-
that was a dig.
Wow.
It wasn't a dig. I was just saying.
It wasn't a dig. It was a teammate.
Hey, I work for Dig.
But like this, it shows so much where people, the community, just about everybody gets sucked up into this whole. Well, this is the best region, so obviously majority of the teams in this region must be like if you put Incredible Miracle in NA, oh man, they would be first place. That's such bullshit. Like I remember CJ Entis, it's such bullshit. It's such bullshit. Like anybody who watches a CJ Entis game, you will
obviously,
rage, internal rage.
Let's push it a little bit farther.
Okay.
So you went for Incredible Miracle. That's easy
Yeah.
to call bullshit on. Let's go a little bit higher.
Mhm.
Where would you draw the line where a Korean team would be number one and say, let's get Raz into trouble in NA?
Okay, alright.
Where are you going to draw the line? Is
Oh.
TSM, are they better than the GE Tigers?
No.
Oh.
Nope.
Oh.
Guess who's a world champion?
God, no, please.
TSM is, not the
KT
GE
Bullets.
Tigers.
Guess they just crushed everyone last year.
If only TSM
Then
had
again,
to
the
actually
situation's
face
different.
GE Tigers.
Trying to
Like-
see here.
You mean if only China... See, people should just be thanking us. Like, thank you so much, World Elite, for giving North America their first world championship.
See,
I think it's-
it comes down to, I think Jin Air is the line. I think Jin Air, because
below or above Janair?
I think, okay,
I think being above Janair is putting us in risky
I like
territory.
how this is China talk and we're talking about Korean teams.
Yeah,
we'll do
this
China
is weird.
next.
This is the thing is I don't have a whole I've watched less OGN games this split than any other split, which kind of sucks. So this is like a difficult conversation for me.
I think Jin Air is better than TSM,
Actually,
so they would
Yeah, I
they would
think
be
like
first.
the top 3.
Yeah.
Well, and by top 3, I don't mean like CJ is ranked number 3 right now.
CJ
but
just had like a better.
CJ is more like 5, like
Okay.
realistically.
Yeah,
So you guys
like,
are going to draw the
SK
line on
Telecom
Jin Air. Where do you put the line at China?
Oh,
Where TSM would be in China?
No. Like, if you, like...
the Chinese teams.
Yeah,
they'd be
where
in
do you
NA.
draw the line of
Oh.
the Chinese teams are now?
Again, this is so hard just because, like,
Stylistically, they're very different.
well, TSM actually I think is pretty China-esque, and that's a rude thing to say. Maybe I don't know.
No, it's not.
If you're
Not
if
really.
you're a TSM fan,
That's
I
a
don't
compliment coming from us.
know. From us, it's like, oh
TSM's
yeah,
developed a lot.
they're really China-esque. They rely on like having a strong performance from like their laning phase, and they have pretty good team fighting. Like they're very similar to a Chinese team. So I don't know.
I would say
I
Vici,
don't-
like 6th place.
What? You're going to put Vici against TSM and you think Vici would win? I'm going to call bullshit on that one.
I mean,
Yeah, actually agree.
they have better.
Vici is a mess. TSM
individual
would throttle
players
them
and
in a
team
best of
fights.
5.
That's probably fair. That's fair.
No, it
See,
definitely
I
goes down
always-
to
Okay,
Vici, but not-
I would give it to I would say that they wouldn't be IG maybe just because IG's laners are better, but they would beat Vici is what I think.
Okay, so just
Bjergsen
I
would
can
crush
believe that.
Hatong. Just like put him in
But
a
like,
round.
I think
I mean,
Hatong- I
that's
think
hard to
Hatong's
say.
fine.
I think Bjergsen is definitely deserving of his world class title, but at the same time, like, who did he face coming to the finals? He faced Coco. He faced. Hang on, I have to
mean-
look at this again.
No, but like he faced Xiye, he faced Coco. He did really well in every situation, and I think like after that, like after all of that, I think Bergson's really like I think he is world class. I think he is solid. I think he'll fail because the team surrounds him too much in the
And he
sense
faced
that the
Maple,
thing becomes predictable. Okay.
I mean, that's kind of hard to say. Those aren't exactly like the best laners in the world. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
Where would you guys draw the line?
Cat's IG.
IG? You
Yeah,
guys
that's
are
fair.
brutal.
I mean, it comes down to how the team plays.
For those of you who don't know the standings, you've got about 5 teams above IG.
Well, look at the 5 teams: Edward Gaming, OMG, Snake, LGD. You're like, okay. Like, I don't think any of those teams are like below TSM.
You don't think that TSM could prepare and beat Snake?
No, I actually don't. Honestly,
This is a
I
good conversation. Okay, we found the dirt. Let's go.
I think that 5 is a safe spot to put TSM, and that they could pull an upset over LGD, and that's where I would draw the line.
Why LGD versus Snake? Like, why? Do you think it's because Snake and TSM have a very similar style as far as being more emphasized on team fighting versus macro play than LGD? Like, you know, in the balance between team fighting and macro, I would put LGD more on the macro side. And team fighting
LGD is more intelligent, and Snake is more into team fighting, but their team fighting approach is a lot different than TSM's.
And TSM is more of a reactive team. I feel
it's
like.
much better.
Like, TSM's way more reactive. Like, I don't think they're proactive at all. In the early game, they always take it. They always take it. Like, oh god, they're in a deficit. Well, depending on the team, obviously, because in NA the competition isn't so, it's iffy in that sense. But like,
Kelsey
still,
just backed out of this conversation. She's like,
but the early game, like, TSM suffers in the early game, and CLG has destroyed them just off of the early game alone. Teams have like, because TSM's early game is so predictable in that sense. But like, TSM really just, like, after they get out of the early game, once they get into the mid and late game, they start turning it on. But like, I feel like that's way too long for them to do such a thing. Like, I think they'll just get destroyed, and maybe they'll adapt. Maybe, like, you never. That's one of the things that you can never really prepare for, is if these teams play against each other and adapt. And I think that TSM is probably the best at adapting. So maybe it's unfair rating these teams over TSM. But I still think that TSM is just not, like, they're not prepared on a team play level.
fair.
Plus, like, I'm trying to. Oh, goddamn. Everything's such a blur right now. I'm trying to think of TSM's NA games because I'm not sure how they deal with
I think their
spoon-fed
IEM
AD carry.
performance was one of their best performances.
They're really good. By far the best Western team.
So I mean, like, if we're really gonna think about like the height that TSM has shown, I think that was definitely, they looked really good.
Yeah, they look better, I think, at IM than they have in LCS.
Definitely agree.
By quite a bit.
Why are we talking about TSM?
Well,
I don't know.
We're making
because
comparisons of where
we're
they'd be
deciding
placed,
where
but-
TSM would be in China.
And I'd have to review VODs of TSM on how they like Juggernaut type compositions, because I don't think they've had many experiences with that. And Snake does that better than probably anyone else in the world.
TSM,
So
I would say, is probably the best team fighting team in North America. A lot of people like to put like Cloud9 up there, but I honestly think that TSM team fights better.
I agree. I think TSM team fights the best in the West, honestly.
Exactly. And so we take this team. Well, I don't know. I haven't looked at a lot of the European teams, and we put them in China, the team fighting region. I mean, do you think that, okay, would TSM do better in Korea because of the stylistic difference versus China?
TSM in Korea?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something we should talk about.
Yeah. I think at that point
I
we probably
really,
gone too
I don't
far,
really
but I think
care.
that's
I don't really care about
yeah.
like the TSM or the teams in particular. I'm more interested in the because the kind of the motif and the theme of this episode has been style, like these stylistic
that's fair.
differences.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to really get at. I don't really give a fuck about Korea or TSM. So sorry guys.
No, I see what you mean. And I think, like, it's whenever you talk about placing a top tier, like, regional team in Korea, you always get to that point where it's like, oh yeah, they'd be pretty high. And it comes to the point where everybody would be pretty high in Korea, because Korea has, like, their top is like, oh, they might be the best in the world. In fact, maybe they are. Like GE Tigers, SKT, you know, and then you get to Jin Air and you're like, okay, and then CJ is like, ooh. And after that point, you just see these shitter teams. And maybe you can put Najin, like, up there if they stop rotating their rosters. But then you just, like, after that point, it just tanks. It tanks really hard. And what are you going to do? Not much.
So, I want to talk briefly about, I guess, when we talk about Snake versus TSM, I see, like, a couple comments in the chat where Bjergsen would outplay Baka, and I agree with that. I think Bjergsen is probably a better mid laner than Baka, but I think the
but
thing.
is he a better team fighter than Baka?
But the thing that I'm talking about here is that if you go down the line of
Flandre versus
Snakes.
Cyrus.
No, I just mean like Snakes players in the context of their region. Like, I don't think any of their players are even like top 3 in their position. Like Flandre, you can maybe make a case that he could but you have like Flame, you have like
Not if,
Acorn,
I was
you
gonna
have
say, if you count the benches, there's no way.
you have Koro,
Which is
you
funny
have Go
to say.
Going, like
Count the benches.
if you count the benches. And then you can even make like some arguments for like some of his previous LSPL brethren in terms of the ones who came from LSPL, like Carry, Sky on his best champions,
Let me.
maybe.
No, Sky, he's dead to me.
Let me for sure. So you can like even talk about that, and it gets hard to rate him, but like, so the top 3. So I don't think he's the top 3 top laner. I don't think Beast is like Beast maybe is getting up there. Like maybe he's like just below top 3. I think that Baka for sure isn't a top 3 mid laner. And then people will say that we'll put Crystal among UZI and Deft and that other guy, Imp. But I don't think he's there at all. Like, I think the reason why people want to elevate Crystal so much is because they tend to build their compositions around Crystal, and their strength is their team play. So their team play makes Crystal look really, really strong. But I think individually, like when we've seen him onto his own devices, he's like not as good without some of the peel, without some of the support, as some of these other AD carries that we talk about. And then, like, Ella, actually, I think might be one of the better supports. So he's really close to, like, the top 3 too, but I don't think across the board any of those players are, like, top 3 in their role. Maybe Ella. Like, Ella's really strong. But
Okay, so just like restating, you think a team that doesn't have a top 3 player in most of their roles for their domestic region is better than TSM, the best number 1 seed world champion from North America.
I think it's a bad stylistic matchup for TSM.
But I think that's why. But when we talk about all the talent in LPL and the fact that Snake is in 3rd place right now, they beat like these. If your strength as a team, as TSM, is that you have a star mid laner, like they can beat those teams, is what I'm saying.
Okay, fair.
So I think that Snake is a really strong team for that reason.
Okay, so now I'm just going to ask you this last question, then we can move on from this topic into Raz's LSPL corner. And it's, who is the best team in the world?
We didn't talk about OMG versus Snake.
We're not going to talk about OMG versus Snake because we're running out of time, and I have things to do. Who is the best team in the world?
Best team in the world, ADG.
Okay, TLDR for OMG versus Snake. OMG played a
God.
better version of
He's
League.
gone rogue.
And Snake. And then we learned that Crystal has gotten good enough to not completely fall apart when he's left to his own devices like he did earlier in the season. So he is getting better at self-sufficiency. Okay, next topic.
There you go.
No, okay, so
I said no.
He said
God damn it.
This is the only thing I wanted to talk about the entire show.
But Kelsey, you
only
talk
thing I wanted to talk about.
Have you ever watched a video of Froggen, like on an interview? Like, Froggen's really smart. This is not a knock against like Froggen's intelligence. But, you know, he talks really slow.
Why do we have to
Wow! Did that really just happen?
Wow.
Oh my god.
Why
You
do
really
we have to
just
get
called
personal?
Kelsey slow, dude. Holy
Wow.
Oh my god, it's so personal.
Personal. Wow, okay. I just wanted to say that OMG had perhaps the most embarrassing moment of any LPL team the entire year so far. And we just spent a long time talking about how terrible WE is, where they saw Snake's new composition that they've been running that's poke comp related, and they decided that they would focus Crystal on Corki, who had nothing to do with that composition really, except maybe some amplified poke when the composition's central focus was going to be the Xerath and the Nidalee pick. And so what do they do? They focus Crystal. They remove completely all their map pressure of every other lane because they're used to Crystal being the center focus of those
You
compositions.
mean Crystal wasn't the carry, and that when they
And-
put him down, they were still able to find success?
Yes, that's what happened. And then OMG lost the game off that. UZI was so sad. People were shitting on UZI a lot about being depressed and needing to be consoled after that match. But if they overfeed you to this ridiculous extent and you can't carry the game, I would be really depressed too. I would be sad and crying in my chair in the corner, okay?
He actually cried.
He was sad. The next game they put him on Lucian, who I think is his by far best champion, and he went completely insane. Everyone had a really good game. But the thing is that they let Snake have that same composition, except they put Crystal on Kog'Maw instead of Corki. I don't think that was necessarily a problem, but they let them have that same composition, and then people say that OMG has no strategy, and I think that of the top 4 teams, they're the worst strategically, but I think that OMG's edge is that they don't like to lose. They don't often lose game 2s if teams play the same strategy twice in a row, because they're good at adapting to a strategy that they've already played against. And I think that that's the one strategic shining light of OMG. So there we go. I'm done.
Bam. There we
That's
go.
really brief.
See? Gotta let people talk, man. Alright.
You went frogging into overdrive.
Wow.
Oh boy.
I love watching
Strategic
Froggen talk.
diversity.txt.
If you ever are drinking with pyrotechnics, he does the best Froggen impression. It's so good. It sounds
Yes,
exactly
does.
like
I think
him.
I've heard it.
It's
I'm pretty sure I
so
heard it.
good.
Does he go rip
Yeah.
out LAN cables and shit? Or,
No,
how does that work?
he just does. I can't even do it because I can't imitate Froggen. But it's
See that joke seeped into me via osmosis. I was it's like, oh, that was a good joke. It's ripping out LAN
Hey.
cables.
Ah.
That was funny.
Best
But
team
yeah.
in the world is Edward Gaming. Okay.
But just to
Yeah.
briefly talk about LSPL, because that's something that's gonna be actually next week. I'm gonna combine it a little bit with the Demacia Cup, because we're starting to see actual groups coming out, playoff groups. Yay, playoff! We start to talk about brackets now. Woo! Brackets. It's so fun. You can just look at it for days and be like, oh
and
man,
the
I'm gonna
newest
do
section
some.
of our show is LSPL with Raz.
Okay, I'll be watching more LSPL a lot because.
Because
I
World
have a lot-
Elite's not
You
gonna
could
make
say
it.
you could
Because I have
say
a lot more
Kelsey.
time. So.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say because the games are actually gonna be fun to watch. All right.
No, because I have a lot more time.
All right. So for LSPL, the 8 teams that got through, ADG, no surprise. ADG just had they were just resident sleepering through their group. It was pretty easy for them. And in their group, Legend Dragon also came along. So already bam right there, the new qualifiers for the LSPL are already in the playoffs. ADG and Legend Dragon. ADG, everybody knows them for Baymid, Ray, Q. They have Shine now, I guess, and Xiye is their new one. But at the same time, they had him replace Move, who is coming back. So it's constant changing roster. Baymid's gonna be out with a new mid laner. I think Kelsey knows his name. I forgot. I'm blanking on him.
Lan.
Who? Lan.
Lan.
Okay. Lan.
His name means blue, I think.
Oh, I'm just gonna call him Blue. That's so beautiful. And then Xiaoyan is out for Move, and I love that move because Baymid plays too much Katarina, blah blah blah.
You can
But
never play too much Katarina.
But Xiaoyan is also not that good of a junk. I don't know. I have problems with Xiaoyan. And then Legend Dragon with Pasa, Voidless. I love that team, and of course Potato. You got the best name for a top laner, literally Potato.
Dude, he should really
Literally
play against
.i7.
Steak.
And so the rest of the people that came in, of course, for the playoffs are KX Happy, a team that I used to hate, but then they completely changed their roster, and now they're really entertaining to watch. They're actually really competitive. I think they're really solid. They might. Then there's Oh My Dream, OMG's B team. Xiao Gu, you might know them as the team that knocked off OMG and Demacia Cup. Team World Elite Future, or Team Wii Future.
Second biggest upset in the no.
Yeah, dude, pretty close, man. That was retarded.
Yeah,
No,
Beachy
OMG just played like idiots. I have no
They
idea
did.
what happened in that series.
That was stupid to watch. Team We Future, the only full Chinese team in this, by the way. It's like everyone else is basically they're either running two. Actually, no, Hong Kong players still count for Chinese. Just kidding. Legend Dragon right there. But like two Koreans are basically in every roster. Then you have Vici Potential Gaming, and then of course Young Glory. Without God, who's like I'm already forgetting his name.
Jiangun.
Yangun. There we go. Without him.
That sounds like a terrible
Yeah.
team.
I'm
Well, they
already
have Illusion
disappointed.
now. They have Illusion
Seriously.
now.
Oh, Skarner.
Oh, they have Illusion? Wow, that really makes
And
up for
they
their star
play,
mid laner.
and they're
Okay.
playing with the other
Sir?
mid laner that IG picked up, whose name is
Yeah.
escaping. Fly, and
Yeah.
a Korean.
Fly and Kim, I guess.
Yeah, Kim.
So next week is these are when the games are starting next week. You'll see Vici Potential
Oh,
Gaming.
and they don't have what's his name anymore either.
Oh, I'm trying to forget.
That terrible AD carry.
Okay. No, see, I've already like annexed him from my mind, so he's out there. Kane hopefully will be the next one who leaves my mind.
Kane hasn't been playing that poorly. Okay.
Now he isn't. Okay, but like I'm still not gonna forget the earlier like bad times. So you have VGP facing Team L. Actually, like honestly, the only things you have to care about is the fact that OMD's facing KX Happy immediately in the first round, and that one in my mind is like the highest potential for an upset. I think KX Happy can take the set from OMD. That's a big one. And then so that's gonna be interesting. We'll update you guys back on that one in the next China talk, since we still have a lot of time for that one. But Demacia Cup's coming with the groups being EDG versus M3. That one's gonna be interesting to watch. Say the least, EDG's probably gonna win. God damn it. World Elite versus
EDG's
Starhorn Royal.
probably.
Yeah. World Elite versus Starhorn Royal Club. See NaMei versus Mystic or something, I guess.
Wow.
We play that.
Exciting.
We play that in. They also play next week in LPL. So.
Oh yeah, so that's gonna be fun. Gonna be seeing a lot of that. LGD versus Invictus Gaming. I don't know if I'm too hyped about that one. And then Snake versus Xiaogu, because Xiaogu beat OMG, and I think Snake is just gonna. I don't know. Snake's gonna bulldoze them. That's just gonna happen. So that's Demacia Cup and LSPL in a nutshell. Like that's the structure for the tournaments. We'll see how it works out.
You feel better, Raz?
I feel a lot better. Wait a minute. Does Demacia Cup literally not have a prize pool for second and third and fourth place? No, they have to.
I think they do. Yeah.
Okay, they
Yeah.
better, because Esportspedia is telling me that they only have a prize pool for first place. and
Esportspedia
I'm
is never wrong.
like, oh god, alright.
If you want real accurate information, you go to Leaguepedia, man. That's
That's where it's at.
Just kidding.
Okay.
Please never go to that trash hole.
And with that, do we have any shout-outs that we'd like to make?
Oh, if you guys want to see Clear Love skill ceiling, watch EDG versus LGD game 2 because it's like pretty disgusting.
Is that the one he played Lee Sin in?
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
so.
that was ridiculous. I was like,
There's like this fabled Clear Love that comes out every once in a while.
You mean playoffs?
Well, no.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's like playoffs Clear Love, which is higher than his normal, but then there's like the skill ceiling Clear Love that played like a couple games in IPL 5, and just like mysterious fabled Clear Love that no one ever sees, and then like
It's probably still farming the jungle to this day.
he came out to that set against LGD. He was like diving every tower and killing things and everywhere, and he had the crazy map pressure, so many ganks, and the game just, you were waiting for this point where the death timers were long enough so that EDG could end the game. They had like an 11,000 gold lead at 20 minutes. Yeah, so anyway, and this was against LGD, who I think is actually quite a good team.
If you want to see the best team in the world smash someone, it's Game 2 EDG versus LGD.
but
And
it's
if you
one
want to
of
see the
about
best jungler in the world, he plays Lee Sin.
Just
Zing!
think
played
about,
a very good Lee
Oh,
Sin.
God.
I was impressed.
just think about GE versus Cloud9, and it's worse.
Oh,
And that's what EDG did to LGD, and it's it's terrifying.
Are
anyway,
you suggesting that LGD
This is how good
is
EDG is
better than
before
Cloud9?
playoffs, man. I'm scared.
I'm scared.
This
And
is
then-
the best they've ever been in.
and then when Cacao went insane in the IG set and started like diving between two towers and trying to kill like Koro, Mako, and Clearlive would just be there counter ganking him. Like they would know where he was gonna be. It was freaky. I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
Kelsey, shoutouts. I work.
My shout
I
out
have
is
to
to
get to work.
Clearlove.
Okay,
The
excellent.
guy,
Clearlove.
the legendary demon Clearlove who only appears once in a blue moon.
Okay,
That's my
Raz.
shout out.
Wait, shout out.
Shoutouts to Fairvine, Esportspedia, because I always love that site.
Even when it's wrong.
God, yeah. And
It's a cool site, man.
there was a new article by Kelsey, since she's not going to promote it, that was absolutely like amazing. That's a great read for anyone who wants to know more about World Elite and the players and the histories, etc., etc., etc. So there we go.
Jackson.
Shout out to the Score Esports.
No.
In the
Drexen.
sport esports, yeah.
You're not Drexen. Yeah, esports heaven.
Wow. Okay, and for my shout out,
Go
I'm actually
team.
I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to say there is a brand new writer who is leaving her job. She's joining the esports world as a full-time esports writer. It's going to be League of Emily. It's at League of Emily on Twitter. She's incredibly talented. She writes for the Brazilian scene, but she also sometimes takes some dips into China and Korea and EU and NA, but she's
I know that
really
feel.
good. So
Talking about Brazil, yeah, China.
well, yeah.
There we go.
She's probably the best writer right now for LoL Esports.
Speaking of which, can we please have like a Southeast? Okay, sorry, that offends people when we say
LMS?
Southeast Asia. LMS. Can we please have an LMS versus BR tournament to like settle this like
I watched this.
pseudo
Man.
fifth major region?
Only
Like I think that
if
would be
Japan
sick.
gets invited.
That would be sick,
Well-
dude. A C Japan. Okay,
Well,
sorry.
the
LMS
wild
Japan.
card tournament. If Brazil qualifies for the wild card tournament, there is a chance we could see a Brazilian team at MSI. So
Well,
See, like
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Wildcard International should be
Versus, like,
Brazil,
Yogi,
Oshi, or OCE, LMS, LJL.
no, LMS gets an automatic seed. They don't have to do the wild card.
ouch, that sucks.
Oh.
So
Wow,
the
and
only way
Brazil
we'll
Brazil's
still
see
got to
get a
go
wild
through
card.
OCE, the Turks,
the
LJL.
Vietnamese, because let's be real, no other GPL teams are gonna.
Is DP or Dark
Yes,
Passage
you
still the head Turkish team?
I don't know anymore.
I don't know, but I know that the roster fell apart. So
No,
If
they've been
Oscar.
scrimming. They've still got a couple of members. I just don't know like how prominent of a team they are in the Turkish scene anymore.
I would direct you to a Turkish expert, but I don't think there is one. So
yeah, if
yeah.
anyone knows a Turkish expert,
I do know this from experience that the Turkish teams scrim a lot of the European challenger teams, and I would assume maybe even some of the European LCS teams don't know that one for sure, but for sure the challenger teams.
Man, those Turks always trying to get EU membership. Bad political joke.
that was
but still.
awful. Please never do that
This is when you
again.
know
Alright,
that
I'm
we
sorry.
didn't end the show fast enough.
Everyone wave.